Okay, so have you ever had one of those moments where you get a really cool business idea?
Uh-huh.
Like you're in the shower or something, or you're like, I'm just driving around, or maybe like right before your alarm goes off.
Totally, yeah.
And you're like, wow, that is brilliant. And then immediately after you think, okay, but what would I even sell? Like, that's a great idea, but what would I sell?
Well, yeah.
If that sounds like something you've gone through, then you're in the right place, because today we are going to be talking all about that. Like, when you have a really great idea, but you're not sure what product to actually make happen.
Totally.
And this is a really common thing that happens with entrepreneurs when they first get started.
It is. It's such a classic dilemma because you get so excited. You're like, I want to start a business.
Yes.
But then it's like,
but then what?
What is it that I'm going to actually put out into the world?
Ooh.
That's the scary part.
So welcome to this deep dive where we go through really interesting stories and figure out how to apply it to our own lives. And for today's deep dive, we're going to be looking at a couple called Crafscend. Yeah. And they make these really cool things called social tags.
Interesting.
So they're these little keychains that have NFC technology embedded in them.
Okay.
And basically you can tap them to your phone and it'll like share all your socials or your contact info, whatever you want.
That's smart.
Yeah. But what's so interesting about Crafscend is they didn't just immediately know.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, social tags, that's what we want to make.
Right. Right.
They actually went through a lot of different product ideas before.
Oh, so it wasn't just like a straight line to success.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So today we're going to look at what they struggled with.
Okay.
What kind of ideas they were considering, and then how they ultimately ended up with these social tags and why that felt right.
I'm in. Let's do it.
And hopefully, by looking at their journey, we can all get some good ideas for how to figure out our own product ideas. So like right from the beginning, it sounds like Crafscend, they were just like throwing out any idea they could come up with.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they were talking about protein bars.
Oh, like the healthy lifestyle thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then beauty products, so maybe like lotions and soaps and stuff.
Okay, sure, yeah.
Then they also mentioned mugs and stickers.
Mugs and stickers, yeah, those are pretty popular.
I mean, those are pretty common, but it sounds like that's kind of like the first phase that everyone goes through.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel like everyone does that a little bit when they're like, what can I sell? What can I sell?
Yeah, and it's so exciting.
Yeah.
But it can also get really overwhelming.
Right. I mean, if you think about it,
yeah,
it makes sense to get overwhelmed because you're just like,
yeah,
okay, anything is possible.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh my gosh, where do I even start?
Right. And I think that's what Crafscend was talking about.
Okay.
They said they called this time period their like overthinking era.
Oh, yeah. The overthinking era. That's real.
And it sounds like it was really just like this back and forth with different ideas. Like, okay, maybe protein bars because everyone's into fitness. Or like, oh, maybe some really fancy like artisanal soap.
Yeah.
But none of it was really sticking.
Like they were kind of going with trends.
It sounds like it. They were trying to figure out what was already out there.
Right.
And what people were already buying.
Okay.
But the problem was that none of those ideas really felt like them.
Oh, so it was like a lack of authenticity.
Yeah.
They weren't really seeing themselves in those products.
Exactly. And that's like the thing that they kept coming back to. Like, how do we make this feel like us? Like, how do we make this feel like Crafscend?
Okay. So it was about finding their own voice and their own identity in whatever they were making.
Yeah. And for them, it sounds like that meant something creative.
Okay.
Something different, something that was more hands-on.
Oh, interesting. So they wanted to actually like make things?
Yeah.
That's cool.
And that's when things started to get really interesting because they started talking about how they got a 3D printer.
Oh, a 3D printer. Okay.
And that seemed to change everything for them.
I see. So instead of looking at like what's already out there and trying to fit in, they were like, what can we create with this new tool?
Exactly. And it wasn't even like they were thinking about it as a business idea at first.
It was more just like playing around?
Yeah, like exploring and seeing what was possible.
Oh, that's cool.
And as they were messing around with it, they started to think about how they could use it for crafts.
Oh, so like taking traditional crafts, but then adding this modern technology element to it.
Yeah, like what if we could do crafts, but like on another level?
Okay, that's starting to sound a little more like those social tags.
Yeah. And they said that's when they had this big light bulb moment.
Oh, tell me about it.
They realized that they wanted to create something that would connect people.
Okay, so that was their core motivation, like bringing people together.
Exactly. And I think that's something that's really powerful about their story.
They weren't just focused on making a product. They were focused on solving a problem.
Right, because connecting with people is a real need that everyone has.
Exactly. And so The idea for social tags came from that.
Okay. I'm starting to see how it all came together.
Yeah, like they wanted something that could help people easily share their information and build connections.
Okay, so they finally landed on a product that felt right.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing even then it wasn't just smooth sailing from there.
No, definitely not.
Right.
They talked about how even when you have that perfect product idea, you can still get hit with this huge fear of like, what if it's the wrong choice?
Oh yeah, that fear of commitment, it's real.
Totally. And for Crafscend, it was like two main things.
Okay, what were they?
First, there was the money thing.
Yeah.
Like, what if we put all this money into it and no one buys it?
Right. That's a scary thought.
Especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah, especially if you've had to, like, save up a bunch of money.
Yeah. Maybe they had like 100,000 pesos saved up or something.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking, oh my gosh, what if I just waste all of this?
Yeah, and that's like a huge psychological barrier.
It is.
Because it's not just about the actual money.
Right.
It's about the time and the energy and the passion that you're putting into it.
Exactly. And the fear that it might all be for nothing.
Right.
So what did they do? How did they get past that fear?
Well, they talked about this really important mindset shift.
Okay.
Where they realized that you can plan and analyze and do all the research in the world, but you'll never really know if something's going to work until you try it.
So it was about taking that leap of faith.
Exactly. Like you can spend so much time worrying about making the wrong decision that you end up not making any decision at all.
Right. You get paralyzed by the fear.
Yeah. And so for them, it was about accepting that there's always going to be some risk.
Sure.
And that you just have to trust your gut and go for it.
Easier said than done, but I get it.
Oh, totally. But it sounds like that's what they had to do.
Okay, so they decided to just take the plunge.
Yeah, and so they started working on social tags.
Okay, and how did that feel for them? Did they have like a big aha moment?
You know, it's funny. They said it wasn't actually like some huge dramatic thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it wasn't like fireworks or like suddenly everything was clear. It was more like this quiet confidence that this felt different.
Oh, so it was more of a feeling than like a logical decision.
It sounds like it.
Interesting.
And they talked about how with all their other ideas, it was just excitement.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this is cool. This could work. But with social tags, it was more than that.
Like a deeper level of alignment.
Exactly. Like, this is us. This is Crafscend.
Okay, so it was more than just an idea. It was like a true reflection of who they were.
Yeah. And I think that's a really important distinction.
It is, because it suggests that they were moving beyond just trying to make a product, and they were starting to build a brand.
Right. And I think that's something that a lot of people forget. It's not just about the product. It's about the whole experience.
The feeling, the connection.
Yeah. And so once they had that feeling of alignment, things started to move pretty quickly.
Okay, so they're off to the races making these social tags.
Yeah. But they were very honest about the fact that the early stages were not glamorous at all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They actually described their initial setup as dark.
Dark.
Messy.
Oh, no.
And honestly, kind of embarrassing.
Oh, wow. So not the picture-perfect startup that you see on Instagram.
Not even close.
So what were some of the challenges they faced? Like, what made it so messy?
Well, they talked about trying to take product photos.
Yeah.
And it was just a complete disaster.
Yeah.
Like, the lighting was terrible. Their table was covered in clutter.
Yeah.
And their workspace basically looked like a storage room.
Like they were just working with what they had.
Yeah, they didn't have a fancy studio or anything.
Right. It was very DIY.
Oh.
So how do they deal with that? I mean, bad product photos can be a real turnoff for customers.
I know, but they came up with a really creative solution.
Oh, what did they do?
They decided to basically cartoonify the photo.
Cartoonify it?
Yeah. They turned that real messy photo into an illustration.
Oh, that's smart.
So instead of trying to hide the imperfections, they just leaned into it.
I like that it's like owning the chaos.
Yeah, and they said they did it because they still wanted to show up, even if they weren't ready to have this perfectly polished presentation.
Right, because sometimes it's more important to just get started than to wait for everything to be perfect.
Exactly, and that first illustrated post became a symbol for them.
A symbol of what?
Of their commitment to this idea, even if it wasn't perfect.
Okay, so it was about progress over perfection.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important message for anyone who's starting out.
Absolutely.
It's okay if things aren't perfect at first. What matters is that you're putting yourself out there and you're taking action.
And that you're passionate about what you're doing.
Yeah. So Crafscend, they actually shared a bunch of advice.
Okay, let's hear it.
For other people who are trying to figure out what to sell.
Perfect.
And their first piece of advice was don't pressure yourself to find that perfect product right away.
Oh, that's good advice, because I feel like a lot of people get stuck in that phase.
Oh, totally. They get so caught up in trying to find the one
Yeah.
that they never actually start.
They're just like endlessly researching and planning.
Yeah. And so Crafscend was like, it's okay to start with something and then see how it goes.
Like it's a process.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about testing and tweaking and learning as you go.
So iteration, not perfection.
Yeah. And they also said it's really important to start with something that you're actually excited about,
That makes sense.
like something you're passionate about, because that's what's going to keep you going.
Totally, because starting a business is hard.
It is.
And there are going to be challenges and setbacks. And if you're not passionate about what you're doing,
Yeah.
it's going to be really easy to give up.
Exactly. And so they were like, don't just chase trends. Like, don't just try to make something because you think it'll sell. Make something because you actually care about it.
Yeah, find something that aligns with your values and your interests.
Exactly. And then they talked about how important it is to get feedback.
Oh, yeah.
Like, don't just keep your ideas in your head.
Right.
Talk to people, get their opinions, and be willing to adapt based on what you hear.
So it's about being open to change.
Totally. And then they also made this really interesting point.
What's that?
They said that your first product doesn't have to be your forever product.
Oh, that's a good point.
Like, it's okay to start with something,
Uh-huh.
get some experience, learn about your customers, and then maybe move on to something else later.
So it's like your first product is almost like a stepping stone.
Yeah, exactly. And then their last piece of advice was don't be ashamed of those early stage imperfections.
Oh, that's such good advice.
Like, it's okay if your photos aren't perfect or if your website is still a work in progress.
Right.
What matters is that you're putting yourself out there and you're connecting with your audience.
Authenticity over perfection.
Exactly, because people can tell when you're being genuine.
Totally. And I think that's something that Crafscend did really well.
I agree they were very open about their struggles, and I think that made them even more relatable.
Absolutely.
So looking back at their story, it really was this messy journey. But it was guided by this growing sense of clarity. And I think it highlights a lot of the things that we all go through when we're trying to start a business.
It does, like the overwhelm of having too many ideas.
Yeah.
The fear of making the wrong choice. And the importance of finding a product that truly aligns with your passions.
Exactly. And so now I want to turn it over to you, our listener.
Okay.
And ask what's one seemingly imperfect idea that you might have dismissed that could be worth revisiting.
Right. Like maybe you had an idea, but you were like, oh, it's not good enough.
Yeah.
Or it's not polished enough.
Or maybe it's just not trendy enough.
Yeah, but what if that idea is actually the one?
Right. What if that's the idea that truly aligns with your passions?
It's worth thinking about.
So we hope that Crafscend's story has given you some things to think about.
Definitely.
And maybe even sparked some new ideas.
No.
And if you're enjoying these deep dives, be sure to check out our next episode.
Oh, what's coming up next?
Well, Crafscend, they actually talked about how they're building this business together as a couple.
Oh, wow.
So in the next episode, we're going to dive into what it's really like to build a business with your partner.
That's going to be juicy.
It is. We're going to talk about the good, the bad, and the hilarious moments.
I can't wait.
So stay tuned.
I'm definitely tuning in for that one.
See you next time.